My name's Neal Avron. I'm a producer, mixer, engineer based in Hollywood, California. You're at my studio, the Casita, here in Hollywood. I've been recording and mixing here for the past 10 years. And one of the first projects that I did here were the demos for the Folie à Deux Fall Out Boy record. We actually had drums in the little booth, and we're doing guitars and vocals even out here in the room, so it was quite the christening for the studio. But since then, I've done a lot of other projects that I've produced. I've recorded albums here with Yellowcard, New Found Glory, Sarah Bareilles, but I've mostly been spending my time mixing. And some of the artists I've worked with have been 21 Pilots, Walk the Moon, Skillet, Young the Giant, Youngblood, Machine Gun Kelly, and also several Broadway things that I've mixed include Dear Evan Hansen and Jagged Little Pill. I actually got started in the industry working in live sound, mixing artists in nightclubs. And from there I got a job at Criteria Recording Studios in Miami. And I started actually as a tech, fixing the gear, figuring that was a great way for me to get my foot in the door at a studio. And from there, I found a job at Sunset Sound, which is what moved me out here to Los Angeles. And I worked there for a year as a tech. And when a job opened in the assistant engineering side, I jumped at it, spent a few years as an assistant engineer, and kind of worked my way up the ladder like everybody does, starting to do small engineering jobs, and then getting to do bigger tracking jobs, and eventually getting into mixing. I was able to work with incredible engineers at Sunset Sound in particular, also at Criteria, but in Sunset Sound, the ones I really remember learning from were engineers like Al Schmidt, legendary engineer, as well as Humberto Gattaca, and I also worked with Tom Dowd and T-Bone Burnett, so I got a lot of experience from these various producers and engineers. Artists that I worked with at Sunset Sound were really varied. A lot of rock artists that I worked on. Tom Werman was a producer that I did a lot of work for, and at that time we were doing a lot of kind of hair metal bands. So that was kind of fun. But T-Bone would come in and we would work on Sam Phillips albums. And we also worked on the Wallflowers record together at Sunset Sound, with him producing and the engineering as well. And a lot of other different projects. With Al, I can't remember all the different projects we worked on, but one in particular I do know was an album by an artist called Everything But the Girl. And they were an incredible duo. Tommy LaPuma was producing. And man, there was a lot to learn on that project. The best thing about producing and mixing would be working with artists and creative people. I think that's really why I got into the business. I love music. Being a producer or mixer, you get to take, back then, blank tape, now a blank hard drive, and create something from scratch that just literally didn't exist. And the amount of choices you have to do that is incredible. And working with artists on that journey is the thing that I whether it's mixing or production, it's the thing that it's most fulfilling for me. The most challenging things mixing or producing, I mean, I guess they're different. For producing, again, it kind of goes back to that you're starting from nothing and you're taking a song and you're shaping it, everything from the drum patterns to the guitar parts to the guitar tones to the, vocal lyrics and sounds. So, and shaping what genre this is going to be and what, a lot of that's set by the artist, but it's, there are specific things you can do to help move things. So producing, there's a lot of challenges to get everything kind of right. And with mixing, it's kind of I think it's like a two-headed monster. There's an artistic side and a technical side. So for me, the artistic side comes first, like what do I want to do? Where do I want to end up? And then the technical side is how to actually achieve that and what tools to use and how to manipulate them in a way to get to this thing that I'm hearing in my head. mixing gear has evolved in kind of a lot of different ways for me. Starting out, I was working at University of Miami, and so they had very limited gear. Then getting into Criteria Studios in Miami, it was such a pro studio, they had everything there. And so I got access to incredible professional gear that I had never had a chance to work on. And then going to Sunset Sound, different types of gear, in particular the consoles, but it was still incredible gear, lots of vintage gear, including microphones, and having that access and learning and being able to watch engineers that I admired kind of mentor me and see how they use that gear. That was what kind of formed how I saw myself using that gear. And today, a lot of those things are now emulated in plugins. And so I can basically recreate a lot of what I did in the studio in a DAW. I'd say my go-to plugin chains tend to emulate consoles and working environments that I've been in the past. So I started on, at Sunset Sound, API style consoles. So those EQs are very familiar to me. I've also done a lot of tracking at various studios here in LA that have Neve consoles. So those type of emulations and recreations are very near and dear to my heart. And then most of my mixing prior to going in the box, or mostly in the box, was on SSL consoles. So I'd say those channel strips, those 3 channel strips, comprise a lot of where my starting points are. And then the same thing for compressors. I'd say I'm using a lot of the vintage compressors, whether that be 1176 style compressors or LA2As. But I'm not afraid to go to some of the more modern things. And there are a lot of plugin manufacturers that I'll use throughout the various signal chains to try and recreate things that I've done in the past. And we have incredible now tools where we can automate stuff that we never could automate before. So I think my plugin chains typically are going to focus on those API, Neve, SSL type things, depending on what I need, and then those various compressors, and then effects boxes as well. I'd say I tend to gravitate towards some of the older boxes that have been emulated. So I think I still use a lot of vintagey style equipment in my mixing, but also incorporate some of the modern things that are happening as well. It's kind of growing and changing, honestly, every day. So inside of ControlHub, we're basically emulating these various plugin chains that I've used on other albums, where I can say, okay, here's a bass sound that was delivered to me, here's how I processed it, and they're able to synthesize and model that change that has been made given my, let's say, 3 or 4 or 5 plugins. And now those can be emulated in the STL Tones ControlHub plugin, and those chains are now in my expansion pack. What you can expect from my expansion pack are curated sounds that I've used on hit records, specific plugin chains that are now modeled in this STL Tones plugin, and it will allow you to immediately get to a place that took me not only years to learn, but months to try out different ways to do it in the actual plugin realm. And now we have a model thing where you can open up one plugin, click, and boom, you have that starting point. I was actually really amazed at how well the plugins translated from my chains over to the actual ControlHub emulations. When I went back and checked them and listened to the difference between what I had sent them and what they sent back, it was really super close. I mean, so close that it almost doesn't matter, because you're that close, you're going to be making slight tweaks to your sounds anyway that'll be different from mine, but they're so close already that it's basically an exact copy of what I had started with. So you'll be starting from a point, that I have given you essentially, and now you can take it to wherever you want to go. I think people like my expansion pack for a couple reasons. One, I'm trying to give you some really good starting plugin chains in one plugin and allow you to simplify your workflow so you can open one plugin, click on my preset, and you've got an incredible starting point, hopefully, for making records and music of your own. I'd say the other thing I'm trying to provide are some utilitarian kind of helpful presets that will allow you to just do things that you're not sure how to do, but they're not really crazy sounds. So some of these are more utilitarian and some are going to be more really aggressive, getting in there and giving you a whole new sound. Put in these overheads and you're going to get out a whole different kind of sound. So it's kind of a mixture. So some sound designy things that are really pushing the envelope on some of the plugins, and some that are more just, there to tweak little things to help you carve out spaces for things in your mix and such. My favorite feature of ControlHub is its flexibility. It just has so many options that you can kind of get lost in it, but once you kind of pay attention to the workflow and the signal flow, I should say, you'll realize that you really can shape. You have access to incredible power with both having dual EQs as well as that whole color section and then the effects section. It's just really an all-in-one place for you to shape sounds and not have to go anywhere else.